Administrator Victor Hayes sat at his desk in the Galactic Council station, staring at the holographic screen floating before him. His 3 eyes blinked in sequence as he read the application for the 100th time. A species called humans from a planet named Earth wanted to join the interstellar community. He tapped his clawed finger against the desk and pulled up the old survey files. 50 years ago, automated drones had scanned Earth and labeled it as a Class 9 death world with marginal habitability. The report recommended avoiding the planet entirely. Victor frowned. If Earth was so dangerous, how had intelligent life survived there long enough to build spaceships? The humans had arrived at the council station 3 days ago. Since then, Victor's message inbox had exploded with incident reports. He opened them one by one, his confusion growing with each file. A human named James Miller had walked into the station cafe and ordered something called hot chocolate. The Vrelian server had accidentally given him a drink containing theobromine, a deadly neurotoxin that caused heart failure in most species. The server had panicked and called medical emergency teams. But James just smiled and said it was delicious. He drank the whole cup and asked for another. Victor moved to the next report. A human woman named Emma Wilson had been helping unload cargo in the docking bay. She picked up a shipping container that required 3 strong Vrelian workers to move together. She carried it across the bay by herself. The Vrelian workers filed a formal complaint, claiming she must be using illegal enhancement technology. Medical scans showed she was not. That was just her normal strength. The third report made Victor's skin crawl. A human child, maybe 6 or 7 years old by their aging standards, had wandered away from his parents. The boy, named Tommy Baker, had approached a Keshan security officer. Keshans had venomous spines covering their bodies as a defense mechanism. The child reached out to touch the officer, saying he wanted to pet the nice alien. The security officer panicked and tried to back away, accidentally releasing venom in fear. The child was unharmed. The security officer was now in the medical bay being treated for shock and trauma. Victor closed the reports and rubbed his face with both hands. Something was very wrong with the original assessment of Earth. He pressed the button on his communication device. A moment later, Commander Marcus Webb appeared on the screen. Marcus led Assessment Team Theta 9, the best planetary evaluation unit in the Council. "Marcus, I need your team for an urgent mission," Victor said. "What's the situation, Administrator?" Marcus asked. "I'm sending you to Earth. The original survey was incomplete. I need a full assessment of the planet and its dominant species." Marcus nodded. "When do we leave?" "Immediately. And Marcus, be careful. Something tells me Earth is far more dangerous than we thought." On the other side of the station, Ambassador Richard Thompson stood with his wife Helen in the observation lounge. They watched ships come and go through the massive windows. Other aliens in the lounge kept their distance, whispering nervously and pointing at the humans. Helen sipped her coffee and frowned. "Richard, why does everyone look so scared? Did we do something wrong?" Richard shrugged his shoulders. "I have no idea, dear. Everyone has been very polite, but they act like we might explode at any moment. And have you noticed the gravity here? Feels like walking on the moon. Everything is so light." Behind them, a group of maintenance workers overheard the conversation. One of them, a small insectoid creature, fainted and collapsed to the floor. His friends rushed to help him, casting fearful glances at the humans. Helen and Richard exchanged confused looks but decided not to ask questions. They were still learning about alien customs. Back in his office, Victor finished writing orders for Marcus's team. He attached all the incident reports and his personal observations. The humans seemed friendly and genuinely excited to join the galactic community. But they also seemed completely unaware of how different they were from everyone else. Victor had spent his whole career studying planets and species. He had seen deathworlds before. Planets where the gravity crushed bones, where the atmosphere burned lungs, where the wildlife killed anything that moved. But those planets never developed intelligent life. The conventional wisdom said it was impossible. Life needed stable, safe conditions to evolve intelligence. Yet here were the humans, cheerful and friendly, drinking poison and lifting impossible weights and letting their children play near venomous creatures. They did all of this as casually as Victor might read a book or eat a meal. He looked at the planet designation in the database. Class 9 Deathworld. He had a terrible feeling that number was about to go much, much higher. Marcus and his team boarded their ship an hour later. The crew included Sarah Parker, a geologist, David Foster, a biologist, Lucy Martin, an atmospheric specialist, and George Reed, a security officer. They were professionals who had assessed hundreds of planets. None of them knew they were about to visit the most dangerous inhabited world in the galaxy. As their ship left the station and set course for Earth, James Miller waved goodbye from the observation deck. He turned to Emma Wilson and smiled. "I can't wait to show them around Earth," James said. "They're going to love it. We can take them to the beach, maybe visit a zoo, show them some wildlife. It'll be great." Emma nodded enthusiastically. "Oh, and we should introduce them to dogs. Everyone loves dogs." If Marcus had heard this conversation, he would have turned the ship around immediately. The assessment ship broke through Earth's atmosphere, and immediately alarms started screaming throughout the cabin. Lucy Martin stared at her control panel with wide eyes, her hands shaking. "Commander Webb, the oxygen levels are at 21%. That's toxic. And the atmospheric pressure is crushing us," she shouted over the noise. Marcus checked his own instruments and felt his stomach drop. The readings had to be wrong. No species could survive in these conditions. He looked at David Foster, whose face had turned pale. "Commander, the gravity reading shows 9.81 meters per second squared. That's 30% higher than standard," David said, his voice cracking. "How are the humans walking around in this?" Marcus made a quick decision. Everyone put on emergency support suits. Now. The team struggled into their protective gear as the ship descended toward a landing zone. Their human contact, Robert Davis, had called it a safe suburban area in North America. Marcus hoped he was right about the safe part. The ship landed with a heavy thud. Marcus felt the gravity pull at him even through the ship's internal systems. When the exit ramp lowered, Robert stood there wearing nothing but thin clothing and a big smile. He waved at them like he was greeting old friends. "Welcome to Earth. Beautiful day, isn't it?" Robert called out cheerfully. Marcus walked down the ramp slowly. Each step felt like he was carrying heavy weights on his back. His support suit groaned and hissed as it tried to help him move. Robert just stood there, perfectly comfortable, not even breathing hard. "Mr. Davis, how are you standing without support equipment?" Marcus asked. Robert looked confused. "What do you mean? Oh, is the gravity bothering you? Sorry, I didn't think about that. We can get you some help if you need it." The first hour on Earth became a nightmare that Marcus would remember for the rest of his life. A small brown animal with a fluffy tail suddenly raced up a tree trunk. It moved so fast it was almost a blur. David screamed and jumped behind Marcus. "That's predator speed. What does it hunt?" David gasped. Robert laughed. "Oh, that's just a squirrel. They eat nuts and seeds mostly. Harmless little guys." Before anyone could relax, a larger creature came running toward them. It had fur, sharp teeth, and was making loud barking sounds. Lucy screamed and dove for cover. "Don't worry, that's just my dog, Max," Robert said, still laughing. "He's friendly. He just wants to say hello." Sarah pulled out her scanning device with trembling hands. She looked at the readings and felt sick. "Commander, that animal is a domesticated version of a pack-hunting predator. The humans keep them in their homes as companions." Robert knelt down and scratched the creature behind its ears. Max's mouth opened, showing teeth designed for tearing meat. "Who's a good boy?" "Yes, you are, Max. You're such a good boy." George scanned the animal and his face went white. "Bite force over 300 pounds per square inch. That creature could crush our bones like twigs." "Max?" "Nah, he wouldn't hurt anyone," Robert said. Then he paused. "Well, he did kill a rat in the garage last month. But that's different." The team followed Robert to his home, walking slowly in their support suits. Inside the house, they saw shelves filled with containers labeled as food and drinks. Robert offered them coffee. Lucy scanned the dark liquid and gasped. "That's concentrated caffeine. It's a cardiac stimulant that could stop most species' hearts," she said. Robert poured himself a cup and drank it. "Want some hot sauce on these eggs?" he asked, holding up a bottle of red liquid. David scanned it and nearly dropped his device. "That's pure capsaicin. That's a chemical weapon. Why would you eat it?" Robert grinned and poured the sauce over his breakfast. "I like spicy food. Wakes me up in the morning." A small human child came into the kitchen. Robert's daughter Amy sat down with a bowl of brown chunks covered in milk. She ate while reading a book about something called dinosaurs. "Daddy, can we go to the park after breakfast? I want to see if the geese are back," Amy said sweetly. "Geese?" Marcus asked carefully. Robert's expression changed. He looked almost worried. "Yeah, Canadian geese. They're really aggressive birds. But Amy likes to watch them." "How aggressive?" George asked. "Well, they've been known to attack bears," Robert admitted. Sarah shrieked so loud that Max started barking. "You let your child near creatures that attack bears?" Robert looked offended. "She's 7 years old. She knows how to handle a goose. I taught her when she was 5. After breakfast, Robert took them to a place he called a gym. Inside, they watched a woman named Patricia Moore pick up a heavy metal bar loaded with large circular weights. She squatted down until her legs bent completely, then stood back up. Then she did it again. And again. Why is she doing that? David asked weakly. Is she being punished? That's exercise, Robert explained. You damage your muscle fibers by working them hard and they grow back stronger. It's how we build muscle. Marcus felt faint. You deliberately injure yourselves? On purpose. Well, yeah. How else would you get stronger? Their next stop was the hospital. Dr. Michael Peters showed them a patient named Kevin Wright lying in a bed. Kevin had a cast on his arm and bandages around his chest. What happened to him? Lucy asked. Car accident yesterday, Kevin said cheerfully. Flipped my vehicle twice. But I'll be out of here tomorrow. The entire team shouted at once. Tomorrow? Sure, Dr. Peters said calmly. His bones will heal in about 6 weeks. He'll need some therapy, but he'll be fine. Marcus pulled the doctor aside. What pain medication are you giving him? Dr. Peters checked his chart. Just ibuprofen. Basic painkiller you can buy at any store. Sarah scanned Kevin and her device beeped frantically. His pain receptors are firing constantly. He should be unconscious from the agony. Kevin heard them talking. It's not that bad. Maybe a 7 out of 10. I once had a kidney stone. Now that was painful. The final visit was to an elementary school. The teacher, Jennifer Hill, introduced them to her class of 8-year-old children. A boy named Peter raised his hand. Do you want to see my pet snake? Peter asked excitedly. David screamed and backed against the wall. You have a what? A corn snake named Noodles, Peter said proudly. He's not venomous, but my friend Billy has a tarantula. A girl named Lisa shouted from the back. I have a scorpion. Marcus felt the room spinning. These were children. Small, young humans. And they kept venomous predators as pets. Jennifer smiled at the terrified aliens. Not all of them have exotic pets. Some kids just have hamsters or fish. She paused. Though Tommy does have piranhas. George pressed his emergency beacon. Commander, request immediate extraction. Marcus looked at his team. They had been on Earth for 6 hours. 6 hours. And they had seen enough to give them nightmares for years. Agreed, Marcus said. We're leaving. Now. They ran back to their ship as fast as their support suits would carry them. Behind them, Robert called out in confusion. Wait. You haven't seen Australia yet. Or the Amazon rainforest. Don't you want to learn about our dinosaurs? The ship launched and broke through the atmosphere in record time. The team sat in silence, staring at nothing. Finally, Marcus spoke. I'm upgrading Earth's classification to Class 11 minimum. Maybe higher. Nobody argued with him. Marcus sat in the ship's meeting room, his hands still shaking from their visit to Earth's surface. The rest of the team looked just as shaken. Lucy stared at her datapad without really seeing it. David kept muttering to himself about predators disguised as pets. We should leave immediately and file our report, Lucy said quietly. I recommend classifying Earth as Class 11 minimum and never going back. Marcus wanted to agree. Every instinct told him to fly far away from that nightmare planet. But he shook his head. Administrator Hayes ordered a complete assessment. We only saw one small area. We need to survey different environments across the planet. David looked up from his tablet and his face was white as snow. Commander, I've been reading Earth's database. That suburban area was one of the safest places on the planet. There are places called rainforests where everything is poisonous. Deserts where nothing can survive. Arctic zones where the cold would freeze us solid in minutes. And then there's a continent called Australia. What's special about Australia? George asked. David turned his tablet around so everyone could see. The screen showed images of snakes, spiders, jellyfish, octopuses, tiny snails, and even plants. Every single one was marked as deadly or venomous. Everything in Australia is trying to kill you, David whispered. The humans have rankings for locations based on how many things can kill you there. Australia tops the list. Sarah was reading her own research on another tablet. Her eyes grew wider with each page. Commander, it gets worse. Earth has had 5 major extinction events. Asteroids hit the planet. Ice ages froze everything. Volcanoes exploded and blocked out the sun. The climate shifted violently. 90% of all species died during these events. Let me guess, George said bitterly. Humanity's ancestors survived all of it. Yes, Sarah said. They adapted. They used tools. They hunted by chasing animals for days until the prey died from exhaustion. Humans never give up. They never stop. Ever. Marcus made his decision. We'll use drones. Automated surveys only. Nobody sets foot on that planet again. Over the next 3 days they sent drones to different parts of Earth. Each mission brought new horrors. The drone they sent to the Amazon rainforest stopped transmitting after 40 minutes. The last video showed a massive snake, thick as a tree trunk, swallowing the drone whole. David identified it as an anaconda. Humans live in that rainforest? George asked weakly. Sarah checked the database. Yes. Indigenous tribes have lived there for thousands of years. They call it home. The drone in the Sahara Desert sent back temperature readings that made no sense. During the day it reached 58 degrees Celsius. At night, it dropped below freezing. There was no water for hundreds of kilometers in any direction. Nobody could survive there, Lucy said firmly. Except humans have crossed that desert for centuries, David replied, reading from his files. Ancient trade routes. Some people still live there. The Arctic drone reported temperatures of -40 degrees Celsius. With wind it felt like -70. The sun disappeared for months at a time during winter. Please tell me nobody lives there, George begged. Marcus checked the human records. The Inuit people. They've survived in the Arctic for over 4,000 years. The deep ocean drone descended into something called the Mariana Trench. It went down 11,000 meters below the surface. The pressure readings showed forces that would crush any of them instantly. Strange creatures with glowing lights drifted through the complete darkness. At least humans can't go down there, Lucy said hopefully. David shook his head slowly. In 1960, 2 humans reached the bottom in a small vehicle. They went to the deepest, darkest, most dangerous part of the ocean just to see what was there. The team sat in stunned silence. The Australian drone catalogued 173 different venomous species in a single day. Spiders as big as dinner plates. Snakes whose venom could kill in 3 minutes. A bird called a cassowary that could slash a human open with its claws. Even the tiny blue-ringed octopus carried enough venom to kill 26 adult humans. This is hell, George muttered. We're looking at actual hell. Australians call it home, Sarah said. And they seem proud of it. They joke about how dangerous it is. The mountain drone climbed to the top of Mount Everest, 8,849 meters high. The oxygen was 1/3 of normal levels. Temperature dropped to -60 degrees Celsius. Wind speeds exceeded 200 kilometers per hour. Class 12 Deathworld, Lucy said. Absolutely Class 12. Marcus pulled up more human records. Over 6,000 humans have climbed this mountain. Hundreds have died trying. And they keep going back. Why? George asked desperately. Why would anyone do that? Marcus found a quote from a human climber named George Mallory from over a century ago. He read it aloud. Because it's there. The team stared at him in disbelief. That's it, David said. They risk death because the mountain exists? Apparently, Marcus said quietly. Sarah was deep in Earth's historical files. Commander, I found something terrible. 66 million years ago, an asteroid hit Earth. The impact threw so much debris into the sky that it blocked the sun for years. The planet went dark and cold. 90% of all life died. Humanity's ancestors survived, George said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Small mammals that could hide underground and eat almost anything. Then came ice ages where glaciers covered huge parts of the planet. Humanity survived. Supervolcanoes erupted. Plagues killed millions. Floods destroyed civilizations. And humanity just kept going. She looked up with haunted eyes. Earth has been trying to kill humanity for millions of years. And humanity kept winning. Marcus read about Earth's weather. Hurricanes with winds over 300 kilometers per hour that could destroy entire cities. Tornadoes that appeared suddenly and ripped buildings apart. Tsunamis, giant waves that wiped out coastlines. Earthquakes that shattered cities into rubble. And humans rebuilt in the exact same spots and waited for it to happen again. They're insane, Lucy whispered. No, Marcus said slowly. They're persistent. They're tough. They adapt to anything. David found something else. Commander, look at this. Human extreme sports. They jump out of aircraft for fun. They throw themselves off bridges attached to elastic cords. They surf massive waves. They climb mountains and dive into underwater caves and race vehicles at deadly speeds. All voluntarily. For entertainment. They create danger when their environment isn't dangerous enough, George said, his voice hollow. Marcus looked at the original survey report again. The drones had scanned Antarctica, an ice-covered wasteland where nothing lived. The Sahara Desert, an ocean of sand with no water. The Mariana Trench, a dark abyss of crushing pressure. The drones thought those places represented Earth. They never saw where humans actually lived. The survey missed everything important, Marcus said quietly. They scanned the most extreme places and thought that was Earth. They never saw the normal places where humans thrive. And those normal places would kill most galactic species. He started writing his report. Earth classification requires immediate upgrade to Class 13 Deathworld. Possibly higher. Humans consider their deadly planet pleasant. They keep predators as pets. They eat chemical weapons as food. They deliberately injure themselves to become stronger. They seek danger for entertainment. Lucy read over his shoulder. Class 13? Are you certain? Marcus thought about little Amy wanting to approach aggressive geese. About Kevin recovering from injuries that should have kept him hospitalized for months. About humans living in deserts, jungles, Arctic zones, and mountains that were marked as uninhabitable in every database. I'm certain, he said. And I think Class 13 might be too low. Sarah suddenly gasped. Commander, Earth has a moon. Many planets have moons, George said. Not like this. Sarah's voice shook. Earth's moon is huge, about 1/4 the size of the planet. It stabilizes Earth's tilt and creates massive tides. It makes the climate more predictable. She showed them a simulation. Without the moon, Earth would be even worse. More extreme weather, wild temperature swings, unpredictable seasons. The horrifying truth settled over them like a heavy blanket. You're saying Earth is a Class 13 death world that's being made better by its moon? David asked slowly. Sarah nodded and ran calculations. Without the moon's influence, Earth would be Class 14. Maybe Class 15. Marcus closed his eyes. Administrator Hayes needs to see this report immediately. The Council needs to know what we're dealing with. As their ship prepared to leave orbit, Marcus took one last look at Earth on the view screen. It looked beautiful from space. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown continents. Peaceful and inviting. It was the most dangerous lie he had ever seen. Administrator Victor Hayes stood before the assembled Galactic Council. 47 different species from across the galaxy filled the massive chamber. Holographic screens floated in the air, displaying Marcus's report for everyone to see. The council members stared at the data with expressions ranging from confusion to outright disbelief. A Class 13 death world? Council member Thessa asked, her voice sharp with doubt. That's impossible. The only other Class 13 world we know is Nightmare, and nobody goes there except criminals and the insane. Victor nodded calmly. I've reviewed Commander Webb's report multiple times. His findings are accurate. If anything, he's being conservative with his estimates. He pulled up comparison data on the screens. Let me show you what makes Earth so exceptional. Standard galactic gravity is 7.55 meters per second squared. Earth's gravity is 9.81. That's 30% higher. Humans evolved in this crushing environment. Their bones are incredibly dense. Their muscles are far stronger than any non-Deathworld species we've encountered. Council member Morris raised a tentacle in question. Surely that's not unusual for Deathworld species? Alone, no, Victor agreed. But look at the atmospheric composition. Earth's atmosphere contains 21% oxygen. Standard optimal atmosphere is 14%. That level would be toxic to most of us. Humans breathe it constantly, and they use that extra oxygen to fuel extremely efficient metabolic systems. He brought up temperature data. Earth experiences temperatures from -89 degrees Celsius to +58 degrees. Humans have populated areas across this entire range. They sweat to cool down and shiver to generate heat. Their bodies can adjust to different climates within just weeks. Council member Valera interrupted. Many species adapt to temperature changes. Not like this, Victor said. He played video footage of humans swimming in freezing Arctic water, then switched to footage of humans living in scorching desert heat. They don't just survive these extremes. They thrive in them. And many do it for recreation. The next video showed humans jumping from aircraft, climbing vertical rock faces, and surfing enormous waves. The council watched in stunned silence. They seek danger, Victor said quietly. When their environment doesn't provide enough challenge, they create dangerous situations themselves. It's built into their psychology. He pulled up images of prehistoric Earth predators. Massive cats with knife-like teeth, giant bears, enormous wolves. Humans evolved alongside these creatures. They didn't outrun them because humans aren't the fastest. They didn't outfight them because humans aren't the strongest. Do you know what they did? The council waited. They outlasted them. Humans tracked prey for days, never letting it rest until it collapsed from exhaustion. Humans have greater endurance than almost any predator on Earth. They run marathons 42 kilometers for fun. Some run over 160 kilometers in a single event. Their bodies are designed to keep moving long after other species would collapse. Sarah's biological report appeared on the screens. Human healing is extraordinary. Broken bones heal in weeks. Injuries that would kill most species are treatable with basic medical care. Their immune systems are incredibly aggressive. They survive diseases that would wipe out entire populations of other species. He showed Kevin Wright's medical file. This human suffered multiple broken bones, internal bleeding, and head trauma in a vehicle accident. He was released from medical care in 3 days. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Furthermore, Victor continued, humans have an unusual relationship with pain. They feel it acutely, but they've developed the ability to function through it. They can work and fight with injuries that would incapacitate most of us. He showed footage of human cities rebuilt after earthquakes, communities restored after hurricanes, and civilizations rising from the ashes of devastating wars. Humans have survived multiple near-extinction events. Their population once dropped to approximately 10,000 individuals. They recovered. They always recover. They have a saying, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." Council member Morris spoke up. "Surely you're exaggerating? Class 13 would make Earth equal to the most dangerous worlds in known space." Victor nodded to Marcus, who stood up from his seat. "Council members, I walked on Earth's surface. I breathed its air with assistance equipment. I experienced its gravity with an exoskeleton. I met its people." Marcus's voice was steady but carried a haunted edge. A 7-year-old human child casually mentioned approaching creatures that attack bears. For fun. An adult human consumed chemical weapons as food seasoning. Another human lifted weights that would crush most of us, deliberately damaging his muscles so they would grow back stronger. He looked around the chamber. Earth isn't Class 13 just because of its environment. It's Class 13 because of what that environment created. Humans are the apex predator of a world that has been trying to kill them for millions of years. And they won. Silence filled the massive chamber. Victor displayed the final piece of evidence. Sarah's analysis of Earth's moon. There's one more factor. Earth's moon is unusually large, about 1/4 the size of the planet. It stabilizes Earth's climate and axial tilt. Without it, Earth would experience even more extreme weather, more violent seasons, more unpredictable conditions. He paused to let that sink in. Without the moon's stabilizing influence, Earth would be a Class 14 death world. A classification that officially doesn't exist because we've never found a planet that hostile that still supports intelligent life. Council member Valera spoke carefully. "Are you suggesting Earth is being moderated by its moon?" "Yes," Victor said simply. "Humans evolved on a Class 14 world that's been partially tamed to Class 13. And they consider it a pleasant place to live." The implications hung heavy in the air. "What do we do?" Thessa asked nervously. "Reject their application? Quarantine their system?" "We can't," Victor replied. "They developed faster-than-light travel independently. They know we exist. If we reject them, they'll explore on their own, and we'll have no way to guide their interactions with other species." "And if we accept them?" Morris asked. Victor thought about James Miller drinking toxins, Emma Wilson lifting impossible weights, and little Tommy trying to pet venomous creatures. "Then we establish guidelines. Safety protocols. We explain that humans are exceptional and that other species are more fragile." "Will they understand?" Valera asked. Marcus laughed, a short bitter sound. "Probably not. They think they're weak. They compare themselves to Earth's other predators and consider themselves inferior. They don't realize that by galactic standards they're terrifying." Victor displayed his final recommendation. "I propose we accept Earth's application with special classification. Earth will be designated Class 13 Death World, pending Class 14 review. Humans will be classified as Death World species and employed as extreme environment specialists and emergency response personnel." "You want to employ them?" Thessa asked in shock. "Think about it," Victor said. "We have planets too dangerous to settle. Disaster zones too harsh to send rescue teams. Exploration missions to hostile worlds we've deemed too risky. Humans would volunteer for all of it. They'd probably call it an adventure." The council members looked at each other uncertainly. All in favor of accepting Earth's application with the proposed classifications and conditions? Victor asked. Slowly, hesitantly, hands and tentacles and appendages rose around the chamber. The measure passed. Victor took a deep breath. Someone needs to inform Ambassador Thompson. Marcus groaned. I'll do it. But I'm wearing full protective gear. Ambassador Richard Thompson sat in the council's diplomatic lounge with his wife Helen, both enjoying their morning coffee. They had learned that most aliens considered coffee a dangerous controlled substance, which still confused them. Victor Hayes approached carefully, keeping what he hoped was a safe distance. Marcus stood behind him wearing full protective gear. Ambassador Thompson, Mrs. Thompson, Victor began carefully. The council has reached a decision regarding Earth's application. Richard and Helen stood up, smiling with excitement. Richard extended his hand for a handshake. Victor took the offered hand carefully, trying not to wince at the crushing grip that Richard probably thought was gentle. We're pleased to inform you that Earth has been accepted for council membership, Victor said. That's wonderful. Helen exclaimed, clapping her hands together. We're so excited to join the galactic community. However, Victor continued slowly, there are some clarifications we need to make about Earth's planetary classification. Richard looked confused. I thought Earth was a Class 9 world? That's what the old surveys said. Victor exchanged a glance with Marcus. Ambassador, those surveys were incomplete. After a thorough assessment, we've determined that Earth is actually a Class 13 death world. There was a long pause. I'm sorry, Helen said slowly, did you say Class 13? Yes. Possibly Class 14, pending further review. Richard laughed. That's ridiculous. Earth is lovely. Sure, we have some dangerous areas, but overall it's quite pleasant. Ambassador, Marcus spoke up from behind his protective mask, you consider your planet pleasant because you evolved there. By galactic standards, Earth is one of the most hostile inhabited planets in known space. But that can't be right, Richard protested. Your gravity crushes most species, Victor said gently. Your atmosphere is toxic to many life forms. Your temperature ranges are extreme. Your wildlife is lethally dangerous. Your children keep venomous creatures as pets. Helen blinked in surprise. You mean like Amy's tarantula? But that's just a Chilean rose hare. They're completely harmless. Mrs. Thompson, Marcus said carefully, a tarantula is an ambush predator with fangs and venom. Most species would classify it as a hostile organism requiring armed security response. Richard and Helen looked at each other, then back at the aliens with dawning realization. Are you saying that we're dangerous? Richard asked slowly. Not intentionally, Victor said quickly. But yes. Compared to most galactic species, humans are extraordinarily strong, durable, and resilient. You survive injuries that would kill most beings. You consume substances that are toxic to others. Your pain tolerance is extreme. Your endurance is unmatched. Helen sat down heavily in her chair. We had no idea. We thought everyone was like us. We understand, Victor said kindly. You had no reference point except Earth. But Ambassador, this is critical. In your interactions with other species, you must be extremely careful. What seems like a friendly gesture to you, a handshake, a pat on the back, a hug, could seriously injure someone. Richard looked horrified. We would never want to hurt anyone. We know. That's why we're telling you now. Victor pulled up holographic displays showing interaction guidelines, physical contact protocols, and safety procedures. We'll need all humans who interact with other species to undergo training. For the next hour, Victor and Marcus explained everything. They showed footage from the assessment team's visit. They explained the incident reports. They detailed the biological differences between humans and most galactic species. Richard and Helen listened with growing shock and embarrassment. So when I lifted that cargo container, Helen said quietly, and those Vrelian workers looked terrified, it was because I'd just demonstrated strength that 3 of them working together couldn't match. Exactly, Marcus confirmed. And when little Tommy tried to pet that security officer, the officer thought he was being attacked by a predator. Yes. Richard put his head in his hands. We've been scaring everyone without even knowing it. Not entirely, Victor said with a small smile. You've also been fascinating. The Council is very interested in humanity's capabilities. We'd like to propose a special role for humans in the galactic community. He pulled up images of dangerous planets, disaster zones, and unexplored hostile environments. We have worlds too dangerous to settle. Regions too extreme to explore. Disasters too harsh to respond to because the conditions would kill rescue teams. But for humans these might be merely challenging. Richard looked up and Victor saw something spark in the human's eyes. Excitement. Interest. The same look Marcus had seen when Robert talked about Australia. You want us to explore dangerous worlds? Richard asked. And provide emergency response in hostile environments. Settle marginal planets. Assist other species in extreme situations. Victor paused. We're calling it the Deathworld Specialist Corps. It would be entirely voluntary. Richard and Helen looked at each other. Some unspoken communication passed between them, the way long-married couples could talk without words. When do we start? Richard asked with a grin. 6 months later, Victor stood in his office reading reports with a mixture of awe and terror. Humans had established a settlement on Scorpius 9, a Class 11 death world with surface temperatures reaching 75 degrees Celsius. They built biodomes and were growing earth plants. The colonists described it as like Arizona but warmer. Emma Wilson had led a rescue team that evacuated a Thetian colony during a volcanic eruption. The Thetians reported that humans walked through conditions that should have been lethal, carrying injured colonists to safety while joking about getting a good workout. A human exploration team made first contact with the Chromoth, a species previously considered hostile and isolated on their Class 12 death world. Turns out the Chromoth weren't hostile at all. They were just terrified because previous visitors kept saying their planet was uninhabitable. The humans, led by James Miller, bonded with them over something called extreme camping. Now the Chromoth and humans were trading partners. Humans had created the Galactic Extreme Sports League. Species from across the galaxy paid to watch humans do insane activities like free climbing, base jumping, and shark diving. It was becoming incredibly popular entertainment. Dr. Michael Peters established a medical exchange program. Human doctors taught alien physicians human medical techniques, particularly trauma care and emergency medicine. Human medicine assumed patients could survive almost anything. Alien medicine did not. A group of human children, including Amy Davis, started a program called Petting Zoo for Aliens where they safely introduced visitors to Earth animals. With proper supervision and safety protocols, aliens were learning that Earth creatures were fascinating rather than terrifying. Though they still refused to visit Australia. Victor put down his datapad and looked at Marcus, who had just entered with another report. So, Victor said, how's the Deathworld Specialist Corps working out? Marcus sat down carefully, always checking chairs for proper gravity settings now. We have 500 human volunteers. We've had to turn thousands away because we have more applicants than positions. Apparently, humans are excited about exploring challenging environments. Of course they are, Victor muttered. The good news is they're following all safety protocols perfectly. No alien injuries from human contact in 3 months. They're genuinely trying to be gentle with us. Victor smiled. And the bad news? 3 human volunteers tried to adopt a creature from Nightmare that the locals consider an apex predator. They named it Fluffy and tried to teach it tricks. Victor closed his eyes and sighed deeply. Did they succeed? Yes. Fluffy now responds to voice commands and likes belly rubs. Victor opened his desk drawer and pulled out a bottle of Vrelian relaxation tonic. He poured himself a large glass. To humanity, he said, raising his glass. Our terrifying new neighbors who think they're normal. Marcus raised his own glass. To humanity. May they never realize how frightening they actually are. They drank in silence, watching through the window as a group of human children played in the station's low-gravity recreation area. The children were laughing and floating through the air with joy. Other alien children watched from a safe distance, too nervous to join in. One human child, little Tommy Baker, waved at an alien child. Come play with us. It's fun. The alien child's parents quickly pulled him away. Victor and Marcus looked at each other and started laughing. They couldn't help it. Earth had joined the Galactic Council. And nothing would ever be the same again.